And hello there, and welcome to Diane Writes once again. So today I figured that I'm kind of working on getting my book covers organized for the Ingram Spark release. So rather than do all like secret book stuff, I thought maybe you guys might actually want to look at that. So I figured I may start there. But I have showcases that are scheduled. Oh, hey, thanks, James. I look healthy. Cool. I took a nap right before I started, so right. Yeah. So I figured I would work on that on stream, but we also have a showcase holding from Moonflower from Sunday, I believe it was. And we also have homework, which I assigned to Siobhan. So it's actually a matter of what would you guys like to do first? I could always open up the Discord and the Chrome instead of the Photoshop, and I could shut down the Photoshop for a bit. There may be some creaking and groaning in the stream as I do that, but mood isn't here at the moment. Yeah, that's fair enough. So how about this, gang? I'll plan to work on the book cover for the first hour, and by that point we'll see what happens. Probably Moon will be back by then, and then we could do a Moon showcase, because I get the feeling like it's not going to take too long, and then we can work the rest of the time, if need be, on Siobhan's homework, which I really appreciate that she did for me, because this will give you guys an opportunity to see one of the most difficult things about prose writing and how to do it live and in process, especially if you compare it with the previous stream. The thing that we were working on, if you weren't here the last time, was that Siobhan was writing in third-person personal, but there was a lot of distance between her character and what was going on. So it was more like third-person omniscient, except it wasn't, because it wasn't really presenting an omniscient point of view. It was still focused through her main character, but there wasn't a lot of visceral contact, visceral relationship to the scene, right? So what I asked her to do was to rewrite it in first person, then we would go over it, and then change it back to third person, using the visceral, interactive kind of relationships of your senses and observations that come more easily when you're writing from a first-person point of view. And I think this might be really helpful for a variety of things. Like, first of all, that third-person personal balance can be difficult to get. Some writers prefer to write in third person because they can't find that window, and some writers prefer to write in first person because they know that they're getting the visceral feel, but they don't get that if they go omniscient, right? So wherever you're at, it might be a really, and it's good for me too, because it helps me to think about it. So I thought, this is good for everybody, we might as well do it. And Siobhan, lovingly, because she's my friend, right, was willing to play guinea pig for this. So thank you very much, Siobhan, and I'm excited to get into that, actually. All right, let's see what the chat has to say. First of all, hi, Siobhan, first in the chat. You win today. Then James. Hello, James. James is at 99.8k channel points. He wants 100,000 because then he gets to make me write him a story in his world, which I am actually very excited to do. So that is really cool. So that's going to be fun. And hello, Eli. Eli's got some great book stuff happening. They processed their stuff for printing Guardian in print format. That's book 2 of the Reaper Saga. And they are now in the process of ordering it so that they can check it out and make sure that all is well. So that's great. And then from there, their Kickstarter backers start getting them, which is awesome. Let's see, who else is here? And hello, Big Juicy. Good to see you. I don't think I've seen you in a while. I hope you're well. They just started streaming writing, so drop your link in the chat. That way people can go give you a follow if they haven't already, and make sure that, they support you, because that's what our community does, because we're awesome. Yay, ordering copies of Guardian, I'm excited. And hello, Daz, good to see you. Yes, I'm sorry you missed the showcases, but only because we had one holding, and we need to do Siobhan's homework, since I asked her specifically to come and do it. So that is really cool. And I'm just not going to have time to do more than that, probably. Big Juicy says, I haven't written in a year. Decided streaming would kick me into gear. It worked for me. Only 3 chapters in, getting first chapter developmentally edited by Birdie25 on Saturday night. That's excellent. Birdie25, you should also check out. I'll shout out them, because they've been a writing streamer who's kind of one of the OG of the writing streamer community. They've been around for a while, and they do good stuff. So, and hello, Rowan! Nice to see you early in the day. That's cool. Pen and Parable, welcome. Yeah, Rowan has a hard time with third person, and probably for that reason, right? So we're gonna get into that, and it'll be really helpful for a lot of people, I think. Right? James asks a question: what should I include in a travel guide to a town, not future scene universe? I can give more context if you want. You can. Let's see, why don't we go to the sprint screen so the sprinters can get started. As you can see, I've not captured my window today, but we will do that. First, we're going to capture Photoshop, which is where I'm working on book covers. Yeah, okay, so travel guide for a town. What people put in a travel guide for a town is what would make them want to visit a town, right? So you're going to want to put some of their major historical sites and other tourist attractions, parks, interesting spots that people like to go to. Like if there's, for instance, if you were doing a tourist brochure of Vancouver, why don't I work through that? Because Vancouver's a very big city. It's got a lot of different things that are world famous on tourist brochures, and it might kind of give a good overall frame of reference. I'm sorry, I'm sniffling here. Yeah, okay, so, there we go. Sorry about that. Okay, so if you were doing a travel guide to Vancouver, what would you put on? Well, first you put Stanley Park, because Stanley Park is a really big park that has been there for quite some time. It has some significant First Nation stuff in it, like totem poles, which are really cool. Salish, I believe they are, but don't quote me on that. Right? You would put, you know, there's many different features of Stanley Park. There's like a promenade walkway where you can see the ocean, and, you know, really lovely like that. You would probably mention that it has a lot of different green spaces, and you would probably mention a couple of the major beaches, right? There are good bike trails, right? So they would probably put those on there. There's arts and culture, quite a lot of it. There is a really excellent museum, right? There's an art museum specifically, and it's big enough that it occasionally gets in things like I went and actually saw a Dutch Masters exhibit at one point where they had, you know, Rembrandt paintings, you know, that Rembrandt painted that came there, right, that I got to see, right, which, you know, in my area of the woods, this, you know, I made a special trip specifically for that, right? I find Rembrandt really inspiring, so it was worth the trip, and the other Dutch masters as well, but he was the one I was interested in seeing primarily, right? There are theaters, right? There is a shopping district that is world famous. It's known as, well, it's Granville Island, right? And it has all kinds of neat, unique little artisan shops in there. It's expensive, right? It's expensive, but it's, you know, you'll get stuff there you won't get anywhere in the world. Yeah, the Canucks, right? They'd probably mention that, you know, you want to come and take in a hockey game, you can go to the arena and you can see the Canucks play, right? The BC Lions, it has a football stadium where the BC Lions, who are one of the CFL teams, play. There's also the Whitecaps, who are a now world famous, well, world standard soccer team, right? Canada is finally, getting in there in the World Cup books. Good point. That wasn't your intention, I know there, Brian. But yeah, there's a really excellent public library. They would probably, yeah, there's an RCM or RCMP museum, so they might mention that in the museum section, right? Gastown. Gastown is an old, it's still very much done up in the architecture of like Victorian era time. And the reason why they called it Gastown is that I think until very recently, right, they actually still had gas lamps there. It has cobblestone streets and a lot of really beautiful old-fashioned buildings. Yes, thank you, Rowan. That's also important. You can get an overhead view of most of the city riding the SkyTrain. The SkyTrain, they have a world-class public transportation system, of which the SkyTrain is the heart, and then the busing system works out from that. Right, so they would mention that. Oh yes, the Buddhist temple and gardens. There is a lovely, I've seen it, Buddhist temple there. It's got this gigantic gold Buddha in the center of it. It's just fucking amazing. You should go see it, whether you're into Buddhism or religion or not, just because it's such a spectacle. It's astounding, right? There's some world famous gardens there. There's a steam clock in Gastown. I did not know that. I have not been to Gastown yet. This is one thing I've not yet done, which I should do. So yeah, they'd mention that kind of stuff. So things that people would be interested in doing and seeing. One thing they should mention, I don't know if they do, right, is that if you go downtown around the Broadway Street area, there are probably 100 different ethnic restaurants where you can get lunch for $10 or less. And they serve a variety of different Indian foods, right? They have Eastern Indian and Northern Indian and Pakistani and, a whole bunch of stuff like that. They've got you can get falafel, right? You can get, there's the Chinese restaurants we know of, and then there's actual Chinese restaurants where they serve noodles that you can watch them stir up in a wok and throw around in the air while they're doing that. There's donburi cafes and sushi shops, and there's now they're starting to get into more African foods. You can get Ethiopian food there. If you haven't ever tried Ethiopian food, you should, especially if you like spicy. It's amazing, right? Yeah, Thai restaurants, Malay restaurants. There's pho places that you can go. Vietnamese soup, which is yeah, really Korean restaurants. It's amazing. It's amazing, right? So these are the kind of things you would put on a travel guide, right? The things that would draw people to the city, right? And what do people like to do? They want to go see things. They want to go do things. Some people are interested in arts and culture. Some people are interested in outdoors activities. Some people are interested in food. Food's a big thing for humans, right? And some are just interested in sightseeing, amazing stuff. Some people are interested in specifically historical sightseeing. So yeah, all this stuff. Oh, and sports, right? You might want to go watch sports, which you can do in Vancouver. You can watch just about anything there. Would you include local secrets? Define what you mean by local secrets, right? In a way that that Broadway Street restaurant section that I mentioned, that might be considered a local secret. I kind of stumbled on that, and yeah, it was really impressive. So that cover, says Brian, you like it? Thanks. No specific links right now, just my Twitch, says the Big Juicy. Well, that's what I'm asking to put in there, dude. Yeah. Yeah. Worked for you too, Brian? Doing the first person to get better at third person personal? Yeah, you might put in nearby local attractions. Whistler Mountain for hiking, Capilano Suspension Bridge. The Capilano Suspension Bridge is really, it's a world-class bridge. If you're into engineering or just amazing sights, it's worth checking out. Whistler is, well, it was the site of recent Olympics, right? So the skiing is world class, the hiking is world class, and the mountain biking is world class. It's famous everywhere for that kind of stuff, and snowboarding, right? So there's actually a very large snowboarding community there. So lots of things for people to do in Whistler. You're gonna be awesome, Juicy. Everybody's different. I'm glad you like the way I do stuff, but you know, everybody's got their own thing that they can contribute, and it's all cool, right? James says, okay, I'm going to do Guildford, UK, a local secret that if you don't like North Street or the High Street on market days, you can go down other streets to get away from the busyness. Yeah, sure, they might mention that. Absolutely, because they want to appeal to a broad range of travelers, right? Some people want to be some people want a resort vacation, right? Some people want a sightseeing vacation. Some people want to do historical stuff, right? Some people want to go have experiences, and this is where you talk about the nightclubs. Oh, nightclubs. I almost forgot about the nightclubs. Okay, so you would think I would know this. Okay, right around Davie Street is a traditional site. It's been that way for years, of a very large and thriving LGBTQ plus community. There are all kinds of stuff for people to do. There's like lesbian run bookstores and gay clubs, and you know, just there's like outreach services, and you know, you can watch, you know, the drag queens come out and, you know, hang out, like just doing things on the street at the various bars and nightclubs in the area, and it's fantastic, right? It's absolutely fantastic. I went there with my girlfriend when I first came out, when I was like 18, and yeah, it's amazing, right? So much stuff. Yep. Oh, and the Symphony of Fire. They might also mention significant local events. There is a world-famous festival of fireworks. It's called the Symphony of Fire, and people come from around the world to watch people compete in creating fireworks displays over a period of 3 nights. You can't get a bus, but it's beautiful. Yes, I do sprints. I'm just talking at the moment because we just started and I was trying to help James out. Right. And I've inadvertently kind of, you know, been they should hire me to do travel advertisement for Vancouver. But, you know, I mean, it was just the best example I could think of where I knew enough about what was going on there and what you would want to see as a tourist to go do. Oh, and the Bard in the Park Festival. Yes. In Stanley Park, they do a festival, I think it's late May that they do it, but don't quote me on that because I don't remember. I keep missing it. But they do Shakespeare in the park, right? And they perform Shakespearean plays. Yeah. So it's awesome. I've only been to Quebec and Toronto, says Brian. I didn't really do Toronto. I went, this is too big for me. This highway's disgusting. I drove through Toronto. I've done Montreal, places in Montreal, which I could talk about, but yeah. Mastermind presenter, name Sable, gives name. MP, specialist subject, Vancouver. Questions on Vancouver in 30 minutes. Yeah. Hey, BC Brown, I'm good. How are you? We were just helping James figure out what might be in a travel guide to a city by using a real-life example. I used Vancouver because I'm fairly familiar with the city, and it's, you know, large city, so there's lots to do there, right? Oh, hey, Shadow, good to see you. Okay, I put that in your count, says Daz. It says James in reply to Daz. I forgot what Daz said. Now, Brian and I are going to get together in the near future because he's asked me to help him out with the process of submitting your stories to professional markets. And I, again, think that's something that a lot of people who watch this channel would really be interested in knowing more about. So I told him, okay, I'm game. I'm going to take you through the process and let's do it on stream so that other people can watch you do it and learn about it. So when are we going to do this? You said you were busy this Sunday. How about next Sunday? Since Sunday seems to be a good day for both of us. What do you figure? Next Sunday's good. All right, we're on. So next Sunday on Sable's World Forge, what we will be doing is how to submit your material to professional markets. Yes, your short stories. It's probably really useful for some of you who did 31 days, 31 stories. This Sunday, I just know it's the day after a funeral. Oh yeah, fair enough, Brian. So I need to be on deck for emotional support for the girlfriend. Of course you do. Yes, absolutely, you should do that. Hoping I get a passing grade on my homework. Oh, and Natalia gave Shadow some homework. Cool. Any tips for returning writers? I've been editing what I got to remember what I wrote. That's my first tip. If you're picking up something you've left for a few months or a few years, right, then editing it is a good way to come back to it and remind yourself of what you were doing in some of your details, like, you know, eye color of the main character, whatever, right? So, I think the key, that's the sprint, by the way, I think the key is to establish writing as a habit again. So make time to write, if at all possible. You know, if you can, set aside an hour or two a day. If you can't, set aside half an hour a day, right? If you can't, I can suggest ways to write in the cracks. I teach a course on that at the Rambo Academy for Wayward Writers. So, yeah. Shadow says, my homework is writing an author bio, a blurb, and wishes for his world, because he's participating in the fan fiction project. That's awesome. Big Juicy says, I want to go to Canada. I was stationed near Seattle, but never crossed the border. If you go north of the border, from there, it looks very much like the Pacific Northwest, and what we call the Lower Mainland is the same geographic area and has very similar cultural elements. So the kind of things you would find in Seattle, you can also find in Vancouver, right? Like there's a Starbucks on every corner, you know? So, you know, and there's like bohemian artsy shops and, you know, yeah, subcultures and neat stuff. Right. Big Juicy says, I'm looking for jobs right now. I have time now, but I'm worried for when I get hired. Once you have established a time that you write at, and writing has become a habit, this is one thing that NaNoWriMo can be really good for, then it becomes easier to find time when situations change. I mean, it may not always be possible. I've gotten absolutely no writing done whatsoever between the book release and the move. So, but we, you know, this will change, right? Once we're moved and I'll be a bit more settled. I'm not gonna go insane and unpack everything right away, because there's no point in that. I'm gonna be like, oh, I want X. Well, I guess I'll go unpack stuff so I can get X, right? That's what I tend to do when I move, and eventually it all kind of organizes itself, right? Alright, so when the sprint starts again, I'm going to get to work on my book cover. This is actually, this is finished, right, but I'm uploading everything all at once. This is an Ingram Spark template that I have used to create a book cover for a 6-inch by 9-inch paperback, trade paperback, right? So they include an ISBN, which and a barcode, which you can move anywhere on the back, unlike with the Kindle version, which puts that there whether you want it or not. So I kind of left it in the same place so there would be consistency in the additions. But there's small differences. For one thing, there'll be a difference in color because Amazon requires things submitted in RGB, right, to color, and Ingram Spark requires them the other mode, CMYK color. So that slightly changes the shades of things. Not too much on this particular palette, I have discovered, so thank you for that, Chaotica. It doesn't seem to be broadly different. Yeah, they've got this template thing. Let me show you. I think I showed you guys a brief glimpse of the Amazon template, but if I were to... Alright, so I made that transparent, but that's a copy of the undercurrent. I also took out a lot of the white so that it would be less distracting. But it's like this, and then there's like pink, light pink stuff in where all the various color is. If it's on light pink, you know it'll show up and it's safe. If it's on blue, it might not show up properly, the blue borders here, because these are where folds and edges of the book are. So try not to put anything important on the blue, right? Like text that you're supposed to read, or, you know, major graphics or anything like that. So edit and do the opacity because I like that. And that's the get back to work growl. I'll show you just for, you know, shits and giggles here, the Amazon template by comparison. This is what the Amazon template looks like. It's the same size. It's just that they've got a framing device for the Ingram Spark one. I've done the same thing with the opacity of this layer, but it's the same kind of idea, right? If it's on, this area is usually white, and then these borders that are sort of a salmon color, you don't want to put anything on. They've got this yellow thing here to show where the barcode that has your ISBN will appear, right? You can't put anything in that corner because it'll just get covered over, right? So you can see there are some subtle differences aside from the fact that the Amazon one uses a whole page, and, you know, like I said, there's subtle shifts of color. I think the Ingram Spark one's darker. Okay, and the reason why I have these up is because I'm working on the hardcover. What I've decided to do for the hardcover is I'm going to have an inside book that actually has the, you know, loose cover graphic elements in panels glued onto it, so that even if you lose the book jacket, you've got the picture and you can tell what it is, but it also will have a book jacket, right? So this is the main cover element that I'm using here. This is the sort of template layer. So as you can see, I can't put anything in very large margins that's important around the edges, or in very large margins here around the binding. So what I'm intending to do with that is fill it in somehow, but I haven't decided how I want to fill it in. Do I want to use a solid color? What solid color do I want to use if I do that? Do I want to find sort of a public domain starscape to fill in there instead? You know, I haven't really made up my mind, so this is part of what I'm working on today. So, all right, and in the meantime, while I was babbling away, BC Brown says they're absolutely fantastic today. 9 to 5 systems are down, so making new merch and writing while they pay my salary. Ah, isn't it nice when they pay you not to work? That's awesome. That is a great day. Have fun. Big GC says, I've only written like 60k words total in life. You'll get there. You'll get more. Big Juicy says, I'm in the middle of a move from Ohio to Georgia. Yee. Fun. In an Airbnb with a Vietnamese couple that is the sweetest, looking for a place once my house sells. Awesome. I hope that works out for you. So you're kind of in transition right now like me. Hello, Moon. Moonflower's back. I just walked to and from Kroger. Back trip had heavy groceries too. Yuck. BC Brown says, I love Ingram Spark for the cover templates. Me too, and I love the quality of book they produce. I've been very happy with it. This will be the first time I'll have picked something that has the stuff glued on the inside of it, but I think it's just more suited to the genre of the book. Yeah. Misa, how you doing? Good to see you. I haven't seen you in a while. I hope you're well. Yeah, so much work to go into publishing, says Big Juicy. It is. It is a lot of work. This is one of the reasons why writers often submit to publishers. Otherwise, why would we share the money, right? We would just publish it ourselves and keep all the money, of course, right? But somebody else does all this shit if you publish traditionally, right? That's, definitely an advantage. They also help you usually with your editing, which can save you a lot of money, right? I mean, there's advantages either way. BC Brown says, that's an understatement, but it's so worth it in the end. Yeah, it depends on what you're doing, right? This project had to be self-published because, crowd-published, I like to say, since it was funded by Kickstarter, which means that people pre-bought the books, basically, because they wanted to see it published, right? I kind of view that as a halfway point, but more like it's got a lot in common with collective publishing, right? But not that it matters, right? All publishing is good. You do it all for different reasons. This one had to be self-directed, right? Because first of all, there's a lot that we're doing on the side about it, like we're going to produce role-playing products for it and stuff, and negotiating those rights with the publisher can be tricky. And the second reason is that what you are told that when you submit stuff to a publisher, you should, even if you intend a series, you should always submit it as a standalone book. And then if it sells well and they like it, they may invest in your series. I didn't want to take the chance that the series would be stillborn. This is a bit like Lord of the Rings in that it isn't really one book. The story takes place over about 5, if you want the whole story. So I wanted to get it all out there. So to assure that that would happen, it meant that I had to direct it. And that's okay with me because I had decisions I wanted to make about the branding that I wasn't sure that a publisher would get. Right? There was, it's a very much a cross-genre book, and it's kind of hard to classify. And I know that because it can be a hard sell. Right? So I classified it as science fantasy when I submitted it to the SIFWA new release letter. I classified it as military sci-fi and space opera when I submitted it to Amazon. Right? I classified it as steampunk in another area. It's hard, right? Who did my elf? The blonde person. That is indeed an elf. His name is Jandar Sunfall. He is the protagonist of the novels. And that was Chaotica who did that, who is also one of the community and a Twitch streamer, and she streams writing and art and also games. You can find her there. Well worth it, by the way. Very reasonable cost. Not cheap, but not ridiculous. Right? And I'm very happy with her work. She's going to do all the covers. I said right off the bat, if this works out, then I will get you to do them all. Because consistency in the series is very important to me. So, yes. Misa said, I've been having a slump. Hopefully I'll get out of it all at some point soon. I hope so too, hon. I hear you. Chaotica is lovely, Brian agrees. Yeah, I think she's amazing. So what do you just think, should I do with the outside borders of this? Should I make it just like the same brown as this, as the upper corner? Should I do like blue, dark blue, like is in the chair and behind the letters on the title? Should I do, I don't know, should I do like more of a parchment kind of look? Should I do a public domain starscape of some kind? It will be different from the stars in the art. Rowan says, my co-writer has been having some super crappy weeks, so no writing has been getting done. Yeah, I hear ya. Yeah. Very busy, too. Yep, that's right. Brian's co-streaming with me Sunday next week. Parchment, says Rowan. Well, this is in space, right? I say starscape, says Brian. Parchment is an interesting idea, says Eli. Yeah, the logic behind the parchment is that this is kind of Napoleonic Wars era, an age of sail technology. So it would represent kind of a map, or, you know, suggest that kind of book. Okay, so we're even now between stars and parchment. Yeah, part of the reason why it's been too fried to write, yeah. Alright, so that's that's 3 for parchment and 2 for stars. Brass astrolabe pattern, says the Big Juicy. Probably beyond my abilities. I would have to get that drawn. It's hard to find just astrolabe pattern. But you know what isn't hard to find? Is celestial maps. Old celestial maps. I wonder if I could find one that doesn't look too much like Earth. Hey. Okay. I'm going to do up the rest of it. Because I would have to open Chrome in order to find that for the moment, and I don't open Chrome and Photoshop at the same time when I'm streaming, because that makes everything blow up. So we'll get as much done as we can before that, I think. I think instead of... I was going to... But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out those borders. Delete them. So, glasses might help, Diane. You want to see what you're doing. Because you know what? You're getting old, woman. You need your glasses. Not that I haven't squinted at everything my whole life. Apparently I've had an amazing astigmatism for quite some time. I think it actually makes me a better shot, right? Because, you know, you kind of squint one eye and another eye, and it kind of shifts things, and then they meet somewhere in the middle, because it's not quite the same focus, and I think it provides more depth perception than the average person. It's no good for reading at a distance, though. Advantages, disadvantages, right? Okay, now we're going to do not quite that much views out. Okay. So just your FYI, guys, if you want to self-publish, it helps if you're a multi-creative type, you know, because you're going to have to be a writer and an editor and a promoter and an artist. That's not quite right. Can I move that inward? No, I gotta start over. Of course I do. Okay. We'll go the other way then. Yeah. Perfect. Perfect. Okay. You're not really up to your showcase, hun? Okay, no worries. We'll do it next time. It's not a problem, hun. Yep, that's right. Rowan says exactly what my husband says. I intend to live forever. So far, so good. Yeah. James is trying to assure me I'm not old. He cast me as a person in their 30s in season 1. That's cool. I'm sure feeling it right now, though, because I'm not getting a proper sleep, and it's, fall is coming, and it's getting damp, and the bones know, right? So, but thank you. Eli says, oh, right, I need to replace a pair of glasses because I broke a pair, and I don't trust myself to not break my only remaining pair. Good plan. Moon says the very concept of old is crappy. I want to be ancient like an Eldritch Horror instead. That's cool. Oh, hey! How you doing? Thanks for joining us, Karin. I haven't seen you in a while. How are you? Sprint is over, for those of you who are sprinting. Yay, nice. Yeah, I want to be an Eldritch Horror instead, too. Brian says, thankfully I have an artist, but nothing else. Just words on digital paper. You'll get there. Yeah, my bones know, and I'm only 20, says Moon. Yeah. Wet and cold up here in northern BC today as well. There are sharks in the wind today. It has bite. Hello, and thank you for the Fox raid. How are you? How was your stream? How are you doing? I haven't had a chance to talk to you in a while, because I haven't had a chance to be around when you've been streaming for a while, and I don't think you've had a chance to be around when I've been streaming for a while, so I hope you're well. What are you working on? Oh! James says, I was in another tab and I thought Sable was being sarcastic because it was you-know-who and not Karin J. Fox. Yeah. Karin says, I'm good. I've been very busy with my new job, which is a dream job, but still, that would explain it. Well, good. Congratulations on the new job. That's excellent. What are you doing? That's awesome. Nice. Brian says, drat, I never know how much lake to add to a world map. Depends on the scale. Karin says, spent the stream making a map. Awesome. Maps are good. Map. I like map. Mappiness. Maps are good. Rowan says, Till looks right. And Daz says, Brian, if it ends up too big, that's okay. You can call it a Great Lake. That's right. Great Lakes are basically fresh water inland seas, right? Yeah, Lake Superior looks like an ocean when you're on the edge of it. I can tell you that. Karin says, I'm a narrative designer for an upcoming game. Awesome! I do world building and get paid for it. Well, shit, you can't get better than that, can you? That is the dream job. Good for you. Congratulations. That's excellent. Lakes are hard, says Masades. Yes. Brian says, I grew up in the Great Lakes. Yeah, he knows all about it. Yeah. You know what's the thing that really stunned me when I went to Lake Superior? Okay, I've done it a couple times. So the second time I was there, I stopped in Kingston, Ontario, I believe it was, right? And I was standing on the pier, and there's a lot of monarch butterflies there, and it was right around the time of year where they start their migration. So, I would watch this butterfly, and I'm looking out over this Great Lake, which looks like an ocean, like there's really no difference between looking at it and looking over at the Atlantic, right? It doesn't look much different at all. You can't see the land on the other side there, right? And here's this butterfly with its little fragile wings, and it flies by my ear, and it goes this way, and it just fucks off over that great big water. I'm like, and you're going all the way to Mexico. Holy crap. Really impressive, really impressive. Nature's neat. What are those golden cords on the Admiral's shoulders called? Would that be something you are looking for? The golden cords are called a lanyard, I think. Or a forge? Something like that? Yeah, the wrap around there. And then there's the epaulets, which are the padded things that go over top of it that are gold. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, Billy, good to see you. How are you today? Guess who's editing and rewriting the work in progress? Excellent. Good job. Glad to hear it. Rowan says, or you could have my kid's job, but a bud tender at a pot shop on afternoon shift, which is quiet, so he's basically paid to sit there and play his Switch. Yep. Surrounded by pot, which he likes. Yep, that's the dream job for him, for sure. Brian says, we would wave at Canada every time we went through Buffalo. You bet. Oh, hey, Atanchi, good to see you. Sorry you got an ad. Ads are dumb. The stream is busy today. I haven't gotten a lot done, just keeping up with the chat. Eli got their glasses ordered for the low price of $19, including shipping. Ah, I wish. $300. Maybe $400, I think. Oh, it's back down to 34K, says Billy, from 40, but got rid of an unnecessary chapter and made the prologue and chapter 1 way better so far. Fair enough. Yeah, sometimes you gotta edit with a chainsaw. I think I spent $300 for 2 pairs, says Big Juicy. Yeah. Yeah, they weren't cheap. And in part, it's the prescription. They're basically bifocals that correct for my astigmatism. They're not really heavy bifocals, right? But I need different things for different situations, especially now that I'm 46. I can tell you it's a lot easier on my neck to use the computer. That much I can tell you. Alright, I'm actually going to do some work on this time, guys. I am going to look for I'm gonna copy over my other details, and I'm going to look for parchment later. But parchment seemed to win. I'm also going to check and see if I can find an old map of like an astrolabe or something that would work. So, your 9 to 5 system's fixed. You gotta go back to work. BC Brown, boo! You were having a great day. This is a bit exciting, says Atanchi. Cool. Which, just the active chat? All these writers and world builders chatting away, or Gidra is an EXE decompiler. Cool. Yeah. Sean's like, oh, cheapers. Mine were $600 and brought down to $480. Yeah. Yep. Get to see what's inside? No. I'm just making a cover. You don't get to see what's inside. I don't think. But if you've been watching before, if you were watching me write it, then you did. Yeah. How are you, by the way? I hope you're having a good day. I'm gonna start doing some of the work I said I was gonna do when I showed up today, because work needs to be done. Alright, so I think I'm actually gonna start with different stuff. Do I need the ISBN logo there? Yeah, it won't hurt. Actually, I think I'll start with the erotic publishing logo. I just left all my layers separate and I've been copying them over when I need them. Well, that's interesting. I wonder why that ended up smaller. I don't really understand how this sizing comparison for my hardcover works, so... Okay, we're going to do that. We're going to paste. It might help if I label my layers, eh? Alright, we don't need to label layer 5. We're going to put label 5 under label 4. We're going to zoom in rather than squint at the frickin' keyboard. I gotta tell you, the more that, the closer you look at this art, the cooler it is. Chaotica did such an amazing job. There's like little details of the folds in the canvas of the sails. Like, you know, there's like texture in the moss on the chair, which is the helm chair, by the way, of the Queen's Dirk for this particular scene that we're depicting here. And you know, things like there's texture on the uniform, you know, it's, yeah, she did great. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to merge that down, and then we're going to merge that down, and then we're going to cut the shit out of this so that matches up with everything else. So first things first, yep. Not too high, a little lower. Actually, no, that's about right. Okay. Nope, not high enough now. This might be too high. Let's see. Yeah, it was. Oh, I don't have that low enough. Okay, that's what it is. We will move this down just a titch. There we go. We'll move this over so that it lines up with that. Fidgety stuff. I dislike fidgety stuff. Come on now, don't be a pain in my butt. Okay, there we go. Now. first. Oop, wrong one anyway. This is the hardcover. Where did I put that information? No, you're not giving me a centering line, eh? Pain in my butt. Alright. Alright. That was me fidgeting with stuff for a while. Rowan's were $170 after MSP paid their share. Dad's like, ooh, I know what's inside. Yep. Daz knows. She's read it. Red Idea says, I ran out of energy, but now I've had a break. I may do some more. Awesome. Rowan says, I'm heating a can of chili beans on my propane heater. Awesome. Sounds tasty. Billy says, I'm like raring to go now. I've sorted out my plot holes. Excellent. That did not even open it, says Rowan. Yeah, you can do that. Just punch like a hole in the top to let out the steam. Well, house was cool and I cranked it. Why not multi-use, says Rowan about her propane heater. Logical. Yep. Billy, have a shovel and filler in case you need to stuff up a tiny bump in the plot road, says Taz. Rowan says, they thought I should have them too, but I declined. Computer light does not cause me sleep issues. Yeah. Billy's reworking book 1 to be shorter but better. More of a prequel novella. That's cool. Yeah, it wasn't sleep issues, it was headaches, says Siobhan. I don't get those either, says Rowan. Siobhan says, I have astigmatism. Yeah, me too. Right, so. I made a copy, so keeping it all in case I have a use for it. Yes, good job! Right idea. Remember what I've said, guys. Never delete anything. If you're going to delete it, keep it on hand somewhere else because you might need it. Save it as, if you're going to do major deleting, save it as another copy and keep the original copy because you never know. You know when you're allowed to get rid of it? When everything's published. That's when. Until then, don't get rid of it. Astigmatism sucks. There were no contacts I could use, says Brian. Yeah, fair enough. I didn't even try. I just wanted glasses because I don't even wear them all the time, just when I'm working on the computer. Misa says, okay, well, I got 100 words written before disassociation kicked my butt. I'll be back for your stream tomorrow. Well, good luck. And I'm sorry that you're having trouble, and I hope that it works out soon. I'm glad you got 100 words done. That's better than no words. And sometimes that's all you got. And that's awesome. See you tomorrow, hon. Hey, Diva, good to see you. And Gwen, hello. Nice to see you guys. Dad says, my dog has decided that it's his job to make sure the foot of the daybed, which I use as an extension of my writing desk, stays clear of everything except him. Ah, yeah, okay, you can flip it periodically. That makes sense instead of putting a hole in the top, Rowan. Yeah. Brian says, I like having a mountain range called the Spine in my world. That's the end of the sprint, by the way. BC Brown says, I have a mountain range called the Spine of the World. Be careful, because that comes from the Forgotten Realms, and those guys will sue at the drop of a hat. Watsy will. Even though, and you know why? Because they're the biggest thieves of other people's IP ever. That's why. Yeah. Rowan says, yeah, don't even when you get it published because it can serve as notes for the next one in the series. Yeah, legit. I mean, like, when the whole series is published, then you can get rid of everything. Right, but not until. Also, the Cloud Breach Mountains. That's awesome, Brian. What a cool name. Yep, Right Idea says, I've made that mistake before. I accidentally lost 20K of my original world building when I sold my old laptop. Thought it was backed up. That sucks. So even the spine, huh, says Brian. You can get away with that. That's not so specific. And hello, Satrium. Good to see you. BC Brown says, that's right, Sable. I forgot they have that range. Must make a change today. Yeah. Probably it was in the subconscious, and that's where you got it from. It's very common for that to happen to people, actually. Pretty sure the Ergo series has the spine. It's pretty safe, I reckon. Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, it's not that specific, so it's very hard to copyright really general phrases. There we go. There's my center line. Perfect. Yeah, I'm sure it was in the subconscious because I love the Forgotten Realms setting. Yeah, legit. And, you know, it's cool, so why wouldn't you? Alright, so we're going to put another triangle or rectangle here. Does that look right? Oh, interesting. That's not the color I was expecting. Not that it doesn't look cool. I think maybe we'll go right to... so that it will be consistent. Because I think there's some weird color things going on there. Okay. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Fuck, it was perfectly lined up too, damn it. I just realized I still have a million interviews to fill out for my blog tour, and I've got 5 days to do it. Huh. I don't know why it turned out that color. I just don't understand it. That's not the color it's supposed to be. It wasn't the color I put on swatches. That's to get back to work, Growl. I'm sorry, gang. I forgot we were on a break. I suppose I should not worry about it, though, because I've been talking during the break, or talking during the work period. So I might as well work during the break period. Why are you not doing that? I don't understand this. Okay, let's remove this and figure out what's going on here. Why are you doing that? What a pain in my butt you were. Okay. Now. I mean, not that that doesn't look cool, but that makes it look more consistent. Okay. Let's catch up on the chat a bit. Yeah, stealing stuff subconsciously is way more common than we all might hope. I remember a story about how the Beatles had to pay somebody royalties because they inadvertently stole a riff from another song. And it was absolutely not intended. It's just that they forgot where it came from and it got in their head. I'll call it the Vertebrae Mountains then. You can call them different things, like I call one the Dragon Spine Mountains. Right, that exists in my world, Draconia, which is one of the worlds that exists in the Toy Soldier Saga. Yeah, you can call it different things. The Vertebrae Mountains works. Yeah, like Daz points out, whose or what spine? Satrian says, you don't even want to know how often I sat down at my piano, played something, thought, hey, that's a neat melody, just to realize I made an exact copy of another song without realizing it. Yeah, it happens. I have an original composition that I did that is, it's supposed to represent the element of water. And I had to revenue share on YouTube because I guess it sounds similar to something else that I don't recall having heard. But, you know, I must have picked it up somewhere. Right. Brian says it's a peninsula that has a range of mountains running down the entire length. That's cool. The Kraken Spine Mountains, it's right on the water. And yes, Diva, I am working on my book cover. This is my hardcover version that I'm working on now. Sable's been talking more than working, yeah. Yeah. Hey, Games, good to see you. You may fall asleep soon, Siobhan? Well, in that case, we better get started on the homework then, eh? Yeah, I can confirm that, says Brian. My client is a huge Beatles fan. Yep. And no, you can't escape your homework that easily, Siobhan. No sleeping at school. Did I see the video of the present-day Metallica accidentally rewriting a riff they'd used years ago? No, I did not, right idea, but that doesn't surprise me. I've done that. Brian says he's just kidding about the vertebrae mountains. Nothing wrong with that. That's cool. BC Brown says Terra's Spines will be my new mountain range going forward. Bible changed. There you go. Satrian says, also there's a reason for stuff to sound nice. Look at many popular songs. They all share similar chords, rhythms, melodies, instrumentation, and so on. Yeah, oh yeah, Star Wars game tonight. Thank you for the reminder. Yeah, different chords produce different emotional resonances with people. And if you're trying to create those emotional resonances, it's often easier to use chords, right? Like you pick certain chords for that reason. Yeah, it's there. I don't want to get into music theory right now, but I do have a little bit of it and can talk about it somewhat. But yeah. Right, yeah, summer stock chords. Yeah, well, I mean, okay, jazz chords can do some really interesting stuff that isn't the usual chords, but they're complicated, man. They're hard to play, right? So, yeah. Not that I don't love jazz. Jazz is interesting. And if you can get out of the framework of existing chords according to musical theory, you can do some really neat stuff, right? Like, I think that, what is her name? Joan Baez, I think it is. You know, Diamonds and Rust. She's like a famous, you know, folk rock singer type. I think she composes, or it could be Kate Bush I'm thinking of, or maybe it's both of them, right? They play stuff. They don't know chords at all. They just play stuff until they like the sound of it on their instruments, and then they do that, right? Jazz chords can sound so nice, though. Yeah, Satrian's right. Jazz chords produce a complexity of emotion because they can combine elements of different types of chords all in one and create a complex, sort of bittersweet feeling. But as Satrian points out, you don't need complicated chords to make great music. No, you don't. And on the other hand, just because you have complicated chords doesn't make it sound nice. Nope. Sometimes that's just fucking noise, right? Okay, I'm going to take my first break, guys. I realize that we're still in the middle of a sprint timer, but it's halfway through the stream. We need to do Siobhan's homework. I'm going to shut down Photoshop for now and run and take a bio, and then I will get Siobhan on the Discord, and we will go over her work when we come back. So I'll see you guys in a minute. Alright, so we're still going to have the break screen up here while we get the call set up. We're about to get back to the sprint. We're just going to do a voice call, since that way there's more room for the homework to be seen. And Siobhan, if you don't mind, could you please repost your link in the chat here?
Not a problem.
Awesome. Alright, how's the music volume, guys? Should I turn it down? It sounds like Siobhan may be a little quiet compared to the music.
And there we go.
Alright, perfect. We'll fire that up.
Not a problem. I'll move my mic a little closer as well, see if that helps.
Yeah, that does make it good. Okay, yeah, music is a touch loud. I'll turn it down, not a problem at all. Actually, I don't know why I'm messing with the main volume here. I should leave that alone. And I should turn the music volume down. There we go. How's that, guys? Better? That helps. Is it still too loud? Okay, much better. Hey, Bitzer, thanks for the raid while I was on break. Oh, hey! Oh, thank you very much, Eli. Yay! Aww. Much appreciated, the bits. That's really awesome of you. Eli says, thank you for helping Siobhan with her book. You help us all by helping her. Well, that's what we're here for, right? To help each other. That's the goal. We're all here to improve our craft, have fellowship, become better writers. Let's put up Siobhan's story right now. Well, her section of it. All right, and let's go back over what she has done since last time. Do we want to, you said you still had the original. Do we want to go over the original? Should we go over the original first, guys, for the comparison? Or do you think that we should jump right in with the new? Checking to see what the chat wants to do.
Yep, I know.
Yeah. Billy says, you're right, Eli. Seeing someone edit live and just work through stuff is invaluable for me. I find it really helpful, too. So.
Yeah, and we discussed how we were going to do this, and because the option was to do it on the Monday, and I said, no, wait till Wednesday.
Right. It's perfect. Okay, everyone seems to be good at the news, so we'll jump right in. They remember the old pretty well. Good. All right. And Billy says also, thank you, Siobhan, for being willing to show your work to us in an unfinished state and take our constructive criticism. Excellent.
We'll get better.
Well, it's brave of you, and it's cool. So, all right, here we go. Entering the dining hall, I noticed the food had yet to be served. Good. Now we're noticing and we're reacting to the environment. Excellent. Claire motioned for us to join her. Aha, see, there we go. Making our way to the table, I could hear murmurs about dinner being delayed. Everyone else was seated, and the faint odor of burnt bread and ozone wafted from the kitchen. So, I do want to go back and compare this paragraph, because I really like it. Entering the dining hall, Eldrick saw the food had yet to be served. Claire motioned for them to join her. Making their way to the table, they heard snippets of conversation relating to the reason dinner was delayed. Yeah. Eldrick scanned in the kitchen, noticed there was no one in the kitchen as every seat was taken. But it makes it, I mean, it's very similar, but we've got smell now. We've got the perspective. We've got reacting to the environment. It's good. Yeah, well, it's night and day. Yeah, it's good. It's really good. Claire, why isn't dinner ready? I asked in confusion. Claire leaned over. Period. By the way, there. Armana had to get food from the castle. Right? Because if you want a comma there, you have to say, Claire leaned over and said. Right?
Not a problem.
Yeah. Okay, Amarna had to get food from the castle. Caitlin was supposed to cook. But she burns everything. I think that was Amarna's plan because of her comments at breakfast. Yes, her comments about announcing the graduations of Claire and Eileen. We've got comments twice. Good, though, that you're flashing back and you're in Eldrick's head. That's excellent. May I suggest rephrasing the comments thing about, in the second part here,
Change it to remarks.
yeah, her remarks, or, yes, she'd mentioned that she was going to announce the graduations of Claire and Eileen, or Eileen, rather. Yeah, something like that. Silence descended. I looked up and noticed others doing the same. The silence of expectation was poignant. Armana
I got
stood.
silenced twice. I gotta fix that.
The quiet. Oh, hey, my phone is running out of power. Ha ha ha. Would Eldrick know what ozone is? That's a good question. Right? I don't know. We'll have to go over that a bit. I'm sorry, just one moment. I will be right back, guys. I have to plug in my phone. My phone has to be available. I'm expecting a call, so I will see you in just a second and flip over the break screen momentarily. I'm not going to shut down the sound.
And actually, yes, Eldrick would know what ozone is because it's a smell that is in the air after a lightning strike.
Okay, I'm back. We're going back to the sprint screen. Okay. Yeah,
That is a good that is a good question, Daz. I don't think they would, but as Rowan said, it's a descriptive term.
yeah, it's always hard to make those choices because ozone has a very specific meaning for us. We know immediately what that smells like, so it's an evocative word. Did the word ozone exist in that time period? In the culture and technological level we're at? Probably not, because it refers to like a particular, it's molecular science that we're talking about, and they obviously don't have that. But at the same time, right, what do you use instead? The smell of electricity? Right?
Don't have yeah, the only way they know that is because they don't really have electricity. They'd have lightning, but
The smell of lightning? Right? That might, if you want to be a stickler about it. I personally don't pay that much attention when it's evocative like that unless somebody draws my attention to it. But do take note, Siobhan, because somebody did draw your attention to it. Maybe somebody else will notice it too. If they do, you should revisit it, right? Here, one person said it stuck out, but that doesn't necessarily, you know my rule, right? 1, thank you for your opinion, right? 2, maybe I should think about this. 3, okay, I better give this a serious look and really consider it, right? Anachronisms are a technique, Itanshi points out. Yes, I use that technique myself. Siobhan might not choose to, though. See, there's a difference in our two writing styles. I use it deliberately in both the Weird West and in the Toy Soldier Saga. And the reason why I used it in the Weird West is because they're not actually, they look like people from the 1800s because that's the technology level, but they're not. They're actually people from like the 2200s, right? And, or 2400s, pardon me. I think 300 years had passed, right? And there'd been an apocalypse and technological regression, but it's not like they don't have cultural memories of shit that existed before. There's still books left. There's still, people understand the science of before, even if they can't imitate it now, right? So it's there deliberately to point that out, right? Because it matters in some cases. In the Toy Soldier Saga, I do it because it's kind of on a borderline between, okay, first of all, it's an alternate universe. Secondly, it's a borderline between fantasy and science fiction. So In some cases, it's easier to just use the term, knowing they would use a different term anyway, and none of it is English, right? So, right? Okay, wait,
Yep.
that's 2 people who noticed it? All right.
It was 2, because it was the right idea and it was Daz.
Okay, in that case, my suggestion is take their advice, right? And talk about the scent of lightning, right? Because your world is very specifically old world,
Yep.
right?
I currently have it in brackets, so I can try and find another way to say it.
Yep, no worries, that's good enough. But Billy also said, wow, I'm really in the scene with the new one. Exactly, that's what we're going for. Right, so... and Rowan points out that's not a common smell unless you're using an electric stove. But there is a smell that is kind of part of being something being burnt that does smell a bit like ozone. So it's legit regardless. Okay, it's just that, yeah, it could be an anachronism, and maybe you don't want those. You've been pretty good at avoiding them, so... Alright. There we go. This is good. As you can tell, dinner is delayed. I could smell the aroma of roast pig wafting past Amarna, making my mouth water in expectation. Great. Now we have visceral stuff. We have smell. We have, like, we know what it feels like to have saliva flood your mouth. This is cool. Okay? But until it arrives, I have some announcements. I watched her gaze past over the expectant expressions. I get that you're trying to do it from his perspective, but here I think that actually distances it more and turns it into a passive voice. So you could just say her gaze passed over the expectant expressions. Or her gaze passed over us. Whatever. Right? But we'll end up changing that back anyway when we change it back to third person. So yeah, her gaze passed over the expectant expressions. I would probably leave. Yeah. 2 of our number have successfully completed their training. Eileen, who has decided to remain here in the capacity of my assistant, and Claire, who has yet to reveal her plans. I would put a period there instead of a comma.
Got it.
Okay. Because we're not describing her actions, really. We're describing Eldrick's observation of her actions.
Okay.
Yeah. I noticed her eyes twinkling with mischief as she smiled. There's much that we need to discuss. Her tone took on a note. Okay, I'll stop back there. I noticed her eyes twinkling with mischief as she smiled. This is excellent. I remember that one of the critiques I gave you was that this seems like, it's very hard to tell from this speech what the emotional context was, that it was affectionate teasing that is about to occur, right? Rather than, heavy critique or whatever. So you're emphasizing that it is, all fun and games until somebody loses an eye here. And so that's why you've got eyes twinkling and the smile.
That was in regards to Claire. It will come back to the good-natured later as well.
Yeah, which is fine. The point is you're emphasizing it, right? But I'm not sure we need them both, but don't just hold that thought in your head for the moment, right? But because maybe we do, we'll come back to it, but it's something to consider. Right? And that comes back to the modern, desire for brevity in writing. But again, I'm not married to that, so, right? Yeah, okay. Checking up on the chat. Okay, right idea, we'll be right back. Eli says, I noticed the ozone thing as well. Sorry for late response, was getting cheese. Daz says, ooh, maybe the scent of overly hot pots? Yeah, that's the point. That does, to me, that does smell a lot like ozone. When metal is dry and overheated, and so smell of hot iron. You know, I don't know, something like that maybe. Ideas.
I like the way Rowan put that.
Perhaps something like the acrid smell of burnt food filled the air. Yeah. Okay. Eli says, a note about this paragraph, I would break it up a bit. It's a long speech and can be broken up pretty easily. Yes, this is one thing that is an ongoing thing I've noticed in Siobhan's writing, and it's a critique that we're probably going to be working through a lot in the edit. And I've said it to her before, right? Her characters, deliver dissertations when they speak, and people don't have that much of an attention span, right? If we're going to have these speeches, we need to break them up with, thoughts, actions, stuff like that, and maybe we don't need quite that much. And yeah, one big paragraph like that can be difficult, but this is an ongoing thing, and it wasn't what I set out to address today. I don't think we have to do every writing issue at once, right? We can revisit that later, right? That was my thought about it. Yeah, Dad says, I think the point where her tone took on a note of seriousness would be a good break because the mood changes. Yes, and that is true. And that can also be a cue to that, right?
That's what I was just thinking about too. So if I hit...
I would probably put it here before what she said, right? As she smiled, and then start the new paragraph with, there's much that we need to discuss. Her tone took on a note of seriousness because I assume that there is much we need to discuss is when it takes on the tone of seriousness, right?
Yep.
Okay, yeah. As opposed to it doesn't get serious until, of course, Ellie has come to learn as well. Right? So it starts at there's much we need to discuss, and then you're describing that this is in a serious tone, right? So then I would split it there. Of course, Ellie has come to learn as well, though she will not be staying as long as I would like. She would be leaving soon to continue on her journey, or she will be leaving soon to continue on her journey. I waited as she paused, folding her hands behind her back. What is Eldrick waiting for?
Her to continue?
This is a tricky one, right? Because by putting I waited in there, you're implying that Eldrick is about to do something.
Ah.
Right.
So just drop the I waited and just go she paused, holding her hands behind her back?
I wouldn't even put I paused or she paused, right? By interrupting the dialogue and putting a description of an action, you imply the pause already. I would just put she folded her hands behind her back.
And then I get to make that into a comma instead of a period.
No, I would still keep it as a separate sentence.
Okay.
Right? Because she folded her hands behind her back, right, is one thing. And then saying, and then she said, is how you would have to do it if you wanted a comma, right?
Right. I also broke it up at that point and shifted it down. So now, because is a new paragraph.
Yeah, you could do that. You could do that. That makes sense. Yeah. Now I would put a comma after now. Now because this is a special occasion, right? Because that's how she would say it, right? Now, because this is a special occasion, so there's a comma there, right? And Caitlin burned dinner. Her voice was mockingly good-natured, and probably, actually, okay, no, we need to address the grammar here, right? We have a bunch of sentence fragments and things that don't connect.
I'm going to change that good-natured to lighthearted.
Her voice was mockingly lighthearted. Okay, yeah. Okay, if you want to keep it like this, then I would suggest using an ellipsis at the end of dinner. Right? Because what's happening is here you are interrupting her sentence and describing other things. Right? So,
Okay.
and then you would add an ellipsis on, after the quotation mark and before I have called upon. Right? Because that tells us where it picks up. At that point, her voice, the H must be capitalized, right, because now it's a new sentence. Her voice was mockingly lighthearted. Everyone else started laughing and giving Caitlin a good-natured ribbing. Yes, I see why you changed the good-natured. Okay, also I'll point out something else in here that's just worth paying attention to. It doesn't matter in a draft, and you changed it now anyway, but something to watch out for when you were doing your editing. In one place you did not hyphenate good-natured, and in another case you did.
Yep.
Right? And that's one of those pick ones. Both are fine, right?
Yeah.
But you gotta be consistent. Okay. Again, that's like detail editing. That's the stuff you're doing when you're doing what I'm doing with To Know Your Enemy, right? Which is going through its kind of final picky edit, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I have called upon the castle cooks to prepare a meal befitting this celebration. I don't think we need to describe her walking into the room. She's already in the room. I get she's in the doorway, but how about she moved aside? Right? She moved aside and gestured towards the doorway as a number of people bearing steaming trays of food entered. What do you think?
That works.
Okay. I could smell the berry tarts before the covers were even removed. I like that. If you really want to be evocative, put the word hot before berry. Right? Because you don't smell berries a lot when they're not hot.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you don't really need it. Honestly, there's nothing wrong with what you've done there. It's just these are one of those suggestions that a good editor will make because they're getting that you're trying to evoke the scent of the berry tarts. And I like that because that tells us something about Eldrick, right? He's like, ooh, berry tarts. Immediately he's drawn to that, so that's cool. Again, there's nothing wrong with what you've done here, but I think the technique should be used sparingly, and this could entirely be a personal style thing. Okay, what you've got is placing the trays on the table. They remove the covers, revealing the succulent roast pig, mashed potatoes drenched in melted butter, and a variety of desserts. Actually, there's nothing wrong with that, but what I might consider, again, not married to it, throwing it out there, right? They placed the trays on the table and removed the covers, revealing the succulent roast pig, right? And the only reason why I would do that is because you've got a lot of simultaneous actions. Placing this, doing that, and doing this, they did this at the same time. Right, but in this particular case, I think I know why it's twigging me. Okay, so when you're placing okay, you've done serving. You're placing the tray on the table. Are you like taking off the cover as you're setting it down?
Usually, yes.
Are you really?
I've done it where you as you're putting it down, you're taking before you let go of it and it's on the table. You've already taken the lid off.
Oh, okay. In that case, leave it as it is. You're describing exactly what you're getting at. Perfect. Okay. Before they could turn to file back out, I'd add one word, even. Before they could even turn to file back out.
Oh, I took that word out originally.
Did you?
Yes.
Oh, no, I think it's needed because what you're trying to tell people here is that, people are starving and the food smells delicious, they're digging in, They're not waiting for shit, right?
Yep.
So that implies that, right? Again, there's nothing really wrong with what you've done here, right? But it just makes it more immediate. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Right. Amarna, gesturing for everyone to serve themselves, shook her head. So she's going...
She's realizing that they're already serving themselves while she's trying to gesture to it.
Oh, okay. That's where the simultaneous actions thing comes into play. No, we need to separate these, right? Let's see, because you're trying to be like, at first, Amarna is like, wait, and then she realizes, oh, fuck it, right?
Yeah.
Amarna raised her hand as if to object, then shook her head and waved for everyone, or gestured for everyone to go ahead. Right, something like that. Because first she's like, wait, oh, fuck. Fine, you know. Trying to put it all in one moment of time makes it confusing about what exactly what she means, right? It makes it difficult to read the body language. Yeah, Daz might be right. You know, maybe Amarna just shook her head at the rush for the food. That works. It simplifies it, right? Billy says, I do a tut and an eye roll personally over a head shake, right? But whatever, right? Like, that's a character thing, and that's totally up to you, right? You know the character, so, and they don't. They're helping, right? But they don't know the characters like you do, so that's your decision. I'm going to go back here and make sure I have missed nothing important in the chat. People sound like they're really listening intently, and that's really cool. Because the chat actually isn't that active except for suggestions to you, which is cool. No, that's cool. That's great. Everyone's focused. That's awesome.
Because I almost want to put Amara shook her head at the impatience of the group. That doesn't work because that's taking it out of the first person. Because how does Eldrick know that?
Sometimes it's okay to jump to conclusions about what people think. Because we do that. Right? We do that. Amarna shook her head at our impatience. You know, I think that's fair. Right? Or, Amarna, you know, shook her head at our gluttony. You know? Whatever, right? It depends on whether or not you want... Eldrick seems to be keenly empathic, right? So it depends on whether you want to emphasize that Eldrick is empathic and notices how people feel about things, or whether Eldrick has more of a sense of humor, right? If I were writing myself in first person, right, I tend to have a self-deprecating sense of humor about things, right? So I would think to myself, right, Amarna gesturing for everyone to serve them, Amarna shook her head at our gluttony, right? Because that's kind of a rib about, yeah, we're a bunch of pigs, whatever, you know, right? And I'm including myself in the group, so it's funny, right? At least I think it's funny. Right? I'm amused by the thought. Shondar's like that too. Shondar has a self-deprecating sense of humor. Graham is not, right? Graham would not think that, right? Graham would think Amarna shook her head at our impatience, or he might even think somewhat judgmentally, right? Amarna shook her head at our rudeness, right? Because that's the conclusions they would leap to about what Amarna is thinking. And it's somewhat based on what they would think, which tells you something about them. You see what I'm getting at there? It's subtle stuff.
What I think I've decided on is Amarna shook her head, rolling her eyes at our impatience.
There you go. That's great. Hey, Haley, good to see you. Thanks for coming in to say hello. It's totally cool that you're, popping in and out. Thank you for the compliments on the setup. We're going over, interesting that people seem to be noticing my stream setup today. It hasn't changed, honestly, so, but thank you. I appreciate it. Maybe it's just working properly today, I don't know. But, we're going over, this is actually Siobhan's prose article in her world of Corrigenda, right? And we are going over an exercise that I asked her to do where to improve her visceral elements of her third person personal, I asked her to rewrite a scene in the first person. And then we're going to bring it back into third person personal. And she's done a great job, right? So we're about, I don't know, what, a third to halfway through. Okay, so, yeah, perfect. Hey, comma. Right, because there's a pause there. Hey, right? Save some for Amarna. She needs to eat too. I spluttered out. Okay. Here's where we get into the said debate. And you have to decide what side of the said debate you're going to come down on, right? I would just put, hey, I said, save some for Amarna. She needs to eat too, right? And I would do it like that because I wouldn't have to create an artificial pause or a dangling clause about what I said. At the end of it, it kind of fills the rhythm. And the reason why I just use said here myself, I'm not saying you should, I'm just pointing out that this is a thing, right? Is because, are we really that self-aware that we're spluttering? And spluttering is pretty strong, right? Like, I would notice if somebody else were spluttering, but if I just said, hey, wait for Amarna, right? Then I would probably not be aware I was spluttering, So that's what I would personally do. There's nothing, again, technically wrong with what you've done. I think it's just, it gives me a bit of a, like, is Eldrick that self-aware? I don't think so, personally. What do you think? Or maybe it's an indication of being overly self-conscious.
That could be, because he is overly self-conscious.
Yeah. See, okay, so we know of Eldrick's whole thing, right? Spoiler alert, we know that Eldrick is actually not a boy. Right? And Eldrick comes to terms with that and accepts her own identity as the course of the novels goes on. Right? But right now, thinking of herself as he, right? He is unaware of this. So that means he's not very self-aware. He's actually doing a lot of, self-denial and self-deception, right? He is, however, very self-conscious, and we know that too. And that often goes hand in hand, right? So, in that case, if we're going to approach it from the he's self-conscious, I might do something, alter it just a little bit. Let's see. Hey, save some for Amarna. She needs to eat too. And then put a period there, right? And then say, or I stammered, right? Or you could put a period there and go, I sounded like I was spluttering, or something like that, right?
Well,
where it becomes a self-critique,
Yeah. I mean, I've rearranged the sentence a bit.
Okay.
And I'm thinking about what Dad said and use snapped instead of spluttered. But I put it because I got, hey, I spluttered. Save some for Amarna. She needs to eat too.
Oh, well, yeah, snapped is perfectly reasonable. And furthermore, I think that someone who's self-conscious is aware that they're snapping. It happens with me a lot. I go, oh, geez, that sounded sharper than I intended.
Yeah.
You know, right? And I would think of myself as snapping. Hey, Scribe, good to see you. How are you?
Hey, Scribe.
Scribe has been doing some evening streams again that I've been enjoying catching. I should shout him out.
Oh, you're right. It was right idea. Sorry, Billy. Thanks for pointing that out, Daz.
For those who don't know Scribe, and there's many who might not because it's been a while since he streamed regularly. That's the sprint, by the way. He is an ASC member, an Anvilite, and a world builder. He has an amazing science fiction world called New Deseret. I absolutely love it, and he's really interesting to talk to. If you want to know, like, you know, facts about stuff, details about science, culture, history, politics, taxation, right? He has a lot of that information just stored up in his head, probably more of it than I do. You should definitely go listen to him. It's pretty amazing. So definitely check him out. And he's fun and he's chill and he does showcases on his streams too. So definitely, you know, go check it out if you haven't already. Yeah, okay. Okay, yeah, I snapped. Sure. Ellie, Caitlin, please do not eat too much. Oh, okay.
Yes, again, she's pontificating. I noticed that.
No, I'm not. That's not it at all. And yeah, Amarna is pontificating, right? Of course, Amarna is pontificating. She's announcing things to a gathering, right? That's fine, right? What I ran into here is that there's been. This could be confusing for a reader. You have listened to my advice here, and I see it, right? But you've kind of overextended. Remember, I know what you've done, right? And it's that you listened to me when I said you don't always need to say he said, she said, whatever, when there's only two people speaking in a conversation, right? You listened to me. But in this case, you do. And the reason why is because you've interrupted it with not one paragraph, but two. And okay. Furthermore, Eldrick is not in a dialogue with Amarna. Eldrick is saying things on the side that Amarna is not interacting with at all. So you do need to say something like, Amarna continued. That's all you need, right? Ellie, Caitlin, please do not eat too much. I will make sure there's food left for you for after your sparring match. I'm sure there's going to be quite the audience. Now, I would like to know something about the tone of that. I am sure there is going to be quite the audience. Is that serious? Is that ironic? Is it excited? Is it amused? What's going on here? I get there's subtext I'm probably not aware of because of the previous scenes.
Yeah, it's Eldrick and Caitlin are going to be having a sparring match because the day before, Eldrick was sparring with Lou and kicked his ass. And Caitlin's better than Lou. So, because both of them seem to trance out while they're fighting. So it's like to see who's going to get what.
Gotcha. Okay, in that case, I would take one of two approaches here. Either I would put an exclamation point after this sentence, which implies excitement. Right. Now, granted, I've been known to overuse exclamation points, but in that case, I think that it may be needed. Or I would break it up here, right? I'm sure there's going to be quite the audience. You know, put the quotations, right? She met my eyes from across the room, right? Then you know that that's, you know, specifically because of what happened yesterday. The reader who will have read this will know what she's talking about. Right. And then continue with the new quotation, right? The question is whether or not there will be any wagering on the outcome. I noticed her winking at the assembled diners. Again, that's, I know you're trying to do from his perspective, but again, we've got a passive voice and a distancing, right? She winked at the assembled diners. How big is the room? How many people are in it?
About 20.
Okay, then that's fine. Yep, because if you're 20 people away, there's at the most like 4 or 5 tables, and everybody can see that she's winking. Right? But then again, winking is an interesting thing, because winking is something you do when you're looking right at somebody.
She hasn't sat down yet.
Yes.
So when she starts talking, people look up again, which I didn't put down. I should have.
No, you don't need that at all. Right? If you haven't told us that she's sat down, then we assume she's still standing and talking to the gathering. That's fine, right? What I'm meaning is that winking is a fairly intimate gesture. It's something you don't do to many people. It's something you do to one person, right? Because you can't be assured that an audience is going to see you wink.
It could be an exaggerated wink.
Yes, and that would work just fine, right? Because I've actually done that on stage, right? Playing guitar, and I'm making a joke, and I go wink, wink, nudge, nudge, right? And I, make a point of drawing attention to the fact that I'm doing that. The wink is the right gesture, but yeah, okay, so cool. She made an exaggerated wink at the assembled diners, something like that, right?
Yeah.
If you choose to lay wagers, I will be the one to witness them. That way there are no arguments. Yep, sounds reasonable. All of us at the table nodded in agreement. Obviously, Eldrick agrees. I gestured to, okay, yeah. All of us at the table nodded in agreement. I gestured to Amarna to join the table as one of us. We need something here to imply that she's done. Right? Because we don't have anything that says that. So, is that what you were talking about when you were talking about I hadn't said that yet? This part?
Yeah.
You were ahead of it? Okay. Sorry, I have no context till I've read it. So, yeah, so something to indicate. I waited to see if she was done, and then I gestured to Amarna to join the table as one of us. Can be that simple, right?
I got a better idea. Instead of I waited, just waiting to see.
No. You know why that's not better?
Why?
Because you're trying to simultaneously make two actions happen that are happening in a sequence. First, Eldrick must assure that she's done. Then Eldrick will invite her to the table. These do not happen at the same time, right?
So I waited to ensure she was done, then gestured for Amarna to join us at the table as one of us.
To join the table as one of us was fine. But yeah, that's great. Yeah. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught the frown on Amy's face, but tried to ignore it. Perfect. That's perfect. That's great. Yeah, out of the corner of my eye, I caught the frown on Amy's face. But I tried to ignore it. Yeah, that's perfect. And then that's exactly what I'm talking about being in the character's space and body, right? Okay, so I would actually start a new paragraph here. I think everyone was surprised when Amarna, I don't know why I can't say it right, Amarna told a particularly dirty joke. The shock on most of their faces made me burst into laughter. How about, they seemed so shocked I burst into laughter? Or here, just because you got laughter twice, told a particularly dirty joke. I burst out laughing at the shock on their faces. As the whole table burst into laughter, Amarna smiled and joined in. That's fine, by the way, right? Because that is a simultaneous action. You could even say, if you wanted, right, to emphasize the fact that Amarna found it funny that everyone reacted with such shock as well. If you wanted to emphasize that, not saying you have to, you could, right? As the whole table broke into laughter, Amarna smiled. She was laughing too. You know, a separate sentence, she was laughing too. If you want. You don't have to. Not married to it, throwing it out there. Right. And then I would say, are you still with me, or am I going too fast?
I'm still with you.
Okay. I miss the camaraderie of this room, comma, quotation mark, she said. New quotation mark, I'm glad you've let me join. Right. And I would do that just because it, you know, or you could do it like this, right? Separate paragraphs. I think everyone was surprised when Amarna told a particularly dirty joke. The shock on their face, or I burst out laughing at the shock on their faces as the whole table broke into laughter. Amarna smiled and joined in. Actually, it's a separate sentence. As the whole table broke into laughter, Amarna smiled and joined in. I have missed the camaraderie of this room. I'm glad you've let me join. And make that all one paragraph, those 2 sentences, and 3 sentences rather, right? And then that way, you don't have to say she said, but we have Amarna as the subject of the paragraph, and we know it's her speaking. You see what I'm saying?
So just put the quote up with the paragraph?
I'm trying to decide whether or not it would be... Yeah, try that. Try that. It might be better to break it into 3 paragraphs here, right? New paragraph, and I think everyone was surprised. The shock made me burst into laughter. New paragraph. As the whole table broke into laughter, Amarna smiled and joined in. I have missed the camaraderie of this room. I'm glad you've let me join. But it could work your way too, so do that. That's fine. Right? I'm not sure which is better, but it works, so. You know, this is about your style, not my style. So that could be a style thing. Yeah. Okay.
Right, so instead of using laughter for Eldrick, what I did with that was, I think everyone was surprised when Amarna told a particularly dirty joke. I chuckled at the shock on their faces. As the whole table broke into laughter.
Okay, but chuckled and burst out laughing are 2 different things.
Yeah.
I mean, do you want Eldrick to just chuckle, or do you want him to just go... you know?
Yeah, that's what I want. I could say guffawed, but that just...
Then that's fine, right? I think I burst out laughing at the shock on their faces, and then as the whole table broke into laughter is fine, right? Because laughing and laughter are at least 2 different forms of the same verb, and burst out laughing is in itself almost a synonym in a thesaurus, right? Because it means, like, it's a particular type of laugh. I don't think we have a better way to describe that in English, so I think it's fine.
All right.
I don't think you have to worry about changing the root verb that much there, is my point.
Yeah. See ya, Dave.
Oh, okay, I guess I better... We've been concentrating for a while, and I haven't looked at the chat. So, I will do that. Okay. Yeah, and zoning, says Scribe. Yeah, well, it's pretty late at night for you when you've been streaming, so that's perfectly legit. Bright Idea says, drop you a follow, Scribe. No idea you'd streamed. I do as well, and I've been trying to stream more regularly. Great to find other streamers. Yeah. Scribe says the sexiest world building rabbit hole, zoning. Yeah, oh, zoning, right? Zoning for industrial, zoning for... Okay, I get it. Yeah. Is it really pontificating if you don't have the hat, says Scribe. Awesome. Some people understand roots of words and make jokes about, the implied meanings of them, which I think are fucking hilarious. That's great. Red Idea says, so I've gone a bit crazy and now back up to 43k words. Oops, I'm supposed to be getting rid of stuff. Been there. However, almost done with the chapter 4 rewrite. Good job. Yep, that's right. Daz is like, it's all good because you will be going back to edit it over and over and over anyways. The only time you have to be ruthless about the chainsaw is the second to last edit. The second to last edit is when the chainsaw should come out most strongly, and the last edit is when you should be picky about things like whether you've hyphenated good-natured every time. Yes. Or whether you spelled gray with an E every time, which is a problem I ran into. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a thing to note, winking means different things in different cultures. That's true, but Siobhan's culture here does seem to have kind of a Western, European basis, and therefore I think it's fine. Right? We don't have to explain that. Yeah?
Yeah, they're a bunch of Celts type.
Also, I agree with Daz there. As one of us, that's a very personal intent. Cool. I agree. That was something that Siobhan had in her original version of this, and I think it's a strong phrase, and that's why I don't want it lost, because it implies I'm including Amarna. People haven't yet, but I'm including. She's one of us. Right? And Eldrick is asserting that. And that's part of the purpose of the scene. And I think that it's a very strong phrase. Yes. So definitely you should keep it. Right.
Yeah.
Smiled wryly to herself works too. Right idea is right. That is something you could use instead of Amarna smiled and joined in. Instead of laughing, she could be smiled wryly to herself. Right? She's like, yeah, okay, I get it. I get why you guys are laughing, right?
Yeah.
I smile wryly a lot, you may have noticed. I noticed because this wrinkle is worse than this wrinkle.
I do it too.
Been doing it for years, you can tell, right? British women sometimes get something similar because of the way they talk out of one side of their mouth or the other, depending on the accent. It's interesting. Diva said have to head out, but thanks for the stream, and Siobhan for sharing. Liked watching this unfold. Thanks for joining us, Diva. I'll see you tomorrow when we get actual writing done. It'll be fun. Yep. Snickered is also an option that Eldrick could do. It all depends on what kind of laugh. Cackled is good. Cackled might be the way to go. Eli's good there. I burst out laughing. Instead of I burst out laughing, if you really want to change the two verb forms to be different there, you could use I started cackling, and actually that could be really cool, because remember that Eldrick is self-conscious, right? So cackling is kind of a way to laugh. I cackle, you may have noticed.
So do I.
It's a way to laugh that sometimes people look at you like, what the fuck? Right? They look at you because why are you being so loud and obnoxious? Right? And so it may be something you think of in kind of a, semi-judgmental way. If I realized I was cackling, I might feel a little self-conscious about that, depending on where I was. Jamie does not like it when I start cackling in the coffee shop, to put it that way. Because then people start looking, and he doesn't like that, right?
Oh,
Aaron doesn't give two shits, right? Aaron does not care at all what the universe around us is thinking about, right? Doesn't care at all. So, I don't have a lot of good training. I've been in a relationship with Aaron longer than I have with Jamie. Since Jamie came into our lives, I've been working harder at being better at presenting myself in public, which is good lessons for me.
Yeah, no, I know I cackle because my mom would always say, "Would you stop cackling like an old hen?"
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Reminds me of Coco. Dimple? No dimple. Dimple? No dimple. Yeah. Dimple? No dimple. Dimple? No dimple. I have dimples. Hmm. You can't see them in the wrinkles, but they're there. Anyway. Okay. We're having fun. It's good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Next sentence. Lady Armana, or Amarna, it is your table. Period. Capital W. Why shouldn't you be here? Question mark. Is it because of position? I was truly confused. Yeah. That's the sprint for those of you sprinting. Ellie, Amy whispered, this is usually where we come to unwind after a stressful day. She's usually the cause of a lot of that stress. Nice. I like that. You don't think she doesn't have a lot of stress? I gestured towards her face, my voice loud enough to carry over the chatter. Mwah! Chef kiss. That's great. Because, she's whispering and you're like, fuck this. I'm not going to keep this conversation quiet. I'm going to share with the gathering. Good. And you immediately get that. So that's well done. I stood up. Period. Again, you want a comma there, you have to say, I said, I yelled, something, right? But I stood up, period. Good enough, right? This is no way to treat someone. Not was, right? Because this is no way to treat someone. I mean, you need a comma there too. Look at us. We're all a bunch of misfits. Probably a period there rather than a comma. I looked around at the gathered diners, feeling disgusted. Nice. That's good. She's trying to mold us into effective healers. We have our foibles, attitudes which are likely to drive her to distraction. I took a sip of my watered wine to quench my parched throat. Why is his throat parched? Is this more like my mouth? His mouth is dry because he suddenly realizes he stood up and he's angry and he's giving a speech?
Yep.
Okay, parched throat is the wrong choice. I took a sip of my watered wine to quench my dry mouth. Because dry mouth and parched throat tend to mean two different things, right? And this is where it comes down to writing is the art of choosing the right one of several word options for its connotation. Right? Parched throat is what happens after a desert, right? Or screaming, or, smoke from a war or something, right? It's not, dry mouth is like all the saliva dried up in my mouth, and it's a very specific thing. Right, so if you don't want to use a cliche phrase, right, which again I think that sometimes people worry over much about, is that phrase cliche? It means something specific, it's fine, right? But if you don't like it, then you could say something fancy like, I took a sip of my watered wine to quench my suddenly sandpaper tongue. Something like that. The desert in my mouth, right? To stop my tongue from sticking to my teeth, something like that, right? Anyway, I'm not gonna harp on it. Besides, today she was a student just as much as everyone else. I shook my head, knowing that I was unlikely to get through to these people without some example being made. I might break that up a bit. I might consider don't necessarily do. I shook my head. Or you could even, insert their reaction before. Everyone looked at me blankly. I shook my head. Obviously, I was going to have to use some example to get through to these people. Right? Something like that. Don't, again, like I said, consider. There's nothing specifically wrong with this. I'm just trying to help you make it a little stronger. Do whatever you want, right? I should be the one unwelcome here tonight. That should start the new paragraph. Or the action, I shook my head. That stuff. Or maybe if you choose to have them react, they all looked at me blankly. Right? That should start the new paragraph. I shook my head knowing that I was unlikely to get through to these people without some example being made. I should be the one unwelcome here tonight. Carefully, I stepped over the bench and began to make my way across the room. That should not be a second paragraph. It should be connected to, I should be the one unwelcome here tonight, somehow. Or, you could also break it up twice if you wanted, and knowing that I was unlikely to get through to these people without some example being made, you could start the new paragraph with, I should be the one unwelcome here tonight. Carefully, I stepped over the bench and began to make my way across the room. And leave the period. Do not put a comma at the end of tonight.
Yeah, I didn't.
Awesome. Okay. Either way. Right, okay. But, Amy spluttered. That's a good use of spluttered. Right? Clearly, Eldrick is kind of disgusted with Amy right now, and is likely to see her actions in a poor light. So, spluttered implies that she's totally lost her cool, right? And that's sort of judgmental, and it should be, right? That makes perfect sense. But, Amy spluttered, you are a student like the rest of us. She's in charge of the place. I like this. This is a good use of simultaneous action. I scowled at her, my eyes narrowing, my lips tightening. Nice. Eldrick's holding it back. Eldrick's ready to let some shit slip right now. Yeah. Right? Like, Eldrick's fucking mad.
Yep, he's livid.
Perfect. That's great. I know that. I can tell that right away. This is supposed to be a celebration. If you will excuse me, I spat, comma, I have a sparring match to prepare for. That's one of those interrupted sentences with a descriptor. And that's how you do that. Turning my back on the assembled diners, I stormed out of the room. Okay. And I see how you're trying to figure out how Eldrick knew what had happened afterwards. And I don't think you need to worry about that overall. Yeah, there, if you're in the first person, it won't matter as much in the third person when we change it back, but Eldrick is not going to glance over his shoulder as he crosses the threshold because it will totally eliminate the effect of his storming and exit, which the point is to illustrate his anger by the action of storming out, right? If you look back over your shoulder, you totally lose the effect of that, right? You need to, cool guys don't look at explosions. You walk out. Fuck them, right? Mm-hmm. Okay? So, that doesn't quite work. But, so we don't need to know all eyes were turned to look at Amy, right? A moment later, I heard Amarna say through the door, "You don't even need the what?" she inquired innocently. Right? You don't. If you're totally doing it from Eldrick's perspective, we don't need that, right? The point is what Amarna answers, right? Amy, did you not understand what he was saying about attitudes? And by the way, did you mean he? Right? Because Eldrick is portraying himself as Ellie right now, right?
And Amarna has called Eldritch Ellie she since the beginning of this, so
Yeah.
yeah. I just fixed that. Thank you.
Yep. And you did it again at the other beginning of the sentence, but rather than replacing he with she there, I would say Ellie. So we know specifically who she's talking about. Amy, did you not understand what she was saying about attitudes? Amarna's tone broke through. No. Amarna said loudly enough that I could hear it through the doorway. Amy, did you not understand what she was saying about attitudes? Ellie spoke highly of your skill, which is the only reason I'm allowing you to stay. Please do not make me regret that decision. Standing in the hall just outside the door listening, I smiled to myself. Well, actually, yeah, I stormed out of the room. I would put that back there, but I didn't go far. I stood in the hall just outside the door trying to calm down. Right? Maybe Eldrick is like, man, I went right from 0 to 60 in about 10 seconds. I probably should, get myself under control, right?
Yeah, especially with the sparring match coming up.
Yeah. Maybe Eldrick's even thinking that. Turning my back on the assembled diners, I stormed out of the room. But then I stopped myself, just outside the door in the hall. That was a little over the top, I thought to myself. I need to get myself under... I realized I needed to get myself under control for the sparring match and tried to calm down. Something like that. And then we don't need... Then we can go back here. Then I heard through loudly enough... maybe Amarna's tone... Amarna's voice was loud enough that I could hear it through the archway or whatever, the doorway, right? It was not, she was not quite angry, but there was certainly warning in her tone, right? Amy, did you not understand what she was saying about attitudes? Ellie spoke highly of your skill, which is the only reason I am allowing you to stay. Please do not make me regret that decision. I smiled to myself. The point had been made. I walked away in a better frame of mind than when I had left. I ran up the stairs to prepare for my sparring match. And this is much, much better, Siobhan. It's beautiful. Okay. You know what the next step is, right?
Yeah, putting it back into third person.
Yes. So the exercise then is this. And do you want to revisit this on Sunday, or do you want to wait for a week and do it Wednesday?
Wednesday might be better.
Okay.
Gives me some time to actually think things through.
Okay. We'll do it on Wednesday. This should be easier a bit. The exercise is turn it back to third person, changing as little as you can get away with.
Yeah.
Entering the dining hall, Eldrick noticed the food had yet to be served. Claire motioned for their Eldrick's group to join her, whatever, right? Depending, the students to join her. Making their way to the table, or making his way to the table, Eldrick could hear murmurs about dinner being delayed. Everyone else was seated, and the faint odor of burnt bread and ozone wafted from the kitchen. Yeah. So, like that, right? Change as little as you can get away with.
Yeah. So I will have yet another box just so we can see the three different in all in one.
Yeah. It's hard. But when you're done this, you're going to thank me. Because then you can go back over the rest of your book and approach it with the same kind of visceral feel.
Yeah. And you're right. I knew I needed to do this. That's why. Because in my commentary, I put trying to figure out how to make this more emotive. It was the emotive I needed.
And that can
I
be
knew
really
it.
hard in third person. That is the challenge. That is the challenge, and it's why a lot of people prefer first person. Or it's good that we're going to do this again in a week, because here's something I want you to seriously think about. Consider rewriting the whole thing in first person. It will be just as difficult to do it either way. The question is what you like better. Now you're about to say, but there's characters who know stuff about what's going on that Eldrick doesn't know, right?
That's part of it.
Okay, I've got the answer for that one, and that is, I want you to pick up, you can come to my house and get it, I got it somewhere if you want, right? The third book in Margaret Atwood's Mad Adam trilogy. Because what she did was she wrote, there were two main characters, and one was written in first person and one was written in third person, personal, right? And she would alter it between chapters or sections. And she did the best job I've ever seen of that ever. That it's challenging, but it was a really effective technique, and your book might really benefit from it. And I think you can do it, right? So if you were going to approach it from that angle, and think about it, right, whether or not you want to do that, whether or not you think it would really make the book pop, right? If you want to do that, then you can switch to the other characters just like you do otherwise, and do it from third person omniscient, and it would work just fine. Now, what's the other reason stopping you from doing it in first person?
Well, part of it is the head hopping I have in one scene, and it was intentional because of the fact that Sebastian is telepathic, and Eldrick isn't, but Sebastian can pick things up that Eldrick doesn't know, or Eldrick,
isn't consciously aware of.
Right.
Gotcha.
Even though he's not doing it intentionally.
Right. Yeah, that's a problem, but there are ways around that. I did a scene where it's in the teeth of winter, so my 7th Weird West story, where I was flashing back and forth between Graham and Piper as things happened simultaneously in sentences at a time. You might consider something like that, right? That could work. You could write the scene entirely from Eldrick's or from Sebastian's point of view, and then have Eldrick consider it later. You could do, here's a thing. I think I saw Stephen King do something like this once. This is advanced technique stuff, but I think you can do this, right? The first person stuff is all in regular print. The thoughts of the other person are all in italics. So that could work too. Right? So don't let that stop you. Right? There's always problems with any approach to a book. But you might seriously want to consider doing it in first person because it's so experiential. If you can't, if you decide that is not in the best interest of your book because there are too many of these complicated scenes, or because you think a little bit more distance is required, that's fine. Right?
Well, I'm actually thinking a little distance is required just due to the fact that some of them can be so emotionally overbearing even with the distance.
So?
I mean, I will consider it.
Writing is about making people feel stuff.
Yeah.
So it doesn't, don't necessarily let that stop you. But maybe you might decide that broader perspectives could be more important. Right? To be fair, right, I chose to write, I don't do a lot of first person writing. And probably I should do more. I chose to do the Toy Soldier Saga in third person personal because it is a big story, and I wanted to be able to shift to third person omniscient when I had to without difficulty, which is part
Yeah.
of what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
I also chose to do the Weird West Chronicles in third person personal because I have many protagonists, right? There's more than one main character, and all of their perspectives are important. And if I eyed anybody, it would get confusing really quickly.
Yeah, that's part of what I'm thinking too, is because I've got Sergei, I've got Sigmund, I've got Sebastian, and I've got Eldrick as the main focuses in this first story.
I think Eldrick is clearly and overwhelmingly your main character. I don't think you've
He,
got the same thing going on as they do in, say, A Song of Ice and Fire, right? Or even my much simpler Weird West, right? Everybody else does everything they do around Eldrick and because of Eldrick.
yeah.
So I think that's I wouldn't hold that up as an argument myself. But the ability to switch easily between multiple points of view is a perfectly valid argument, right? So if it's more like the Toy Soldier Saga, Toy Soldier's big, right? It's a space opera, and
Yeah.
sometimes there's stuff going on that Shandar does not know that you have to know, right? Because if the reader does not know it, they will be like, "What the fuck is going on?" Right?
Yeah. And that's what I'm thinking, because the first book is pretty much focusing on Eldrick, but once I get past that and he's out in the world and there's more going on, I need to, because Eldrick's separated from Sebastian, and Sebastian's gonna be doing his own thing.
Okay, yep. Then that's a perfectly good reason to keep it in third person personal. And I will tell you a little bit of a spoiler. I'm going to have that going on in book 3, right? For exactly that reason. Point of view will switch back and forth between Shandar and Yathar quite a lot.
Yeah.
Right? So I get you, and that's fine, right? So it means make extra effort to be visceral, right? You can do things like use italicized self thoughts, right?
Yep.
A thing to keep in mind when you are doing third person personal is describing actions is difficult when you're describing it from the protagonist's point of view, because I found myself correcting that a lot in my edit. Things like I glared like a hawk. You don't know what you're glaring like, right?
All you know is you glared.
My eyes narrowed, right? You can feel your eyes narrow. You're going, I glowered. That's fine, right? You're glowering. You're frowning. You're, whatever, right? But you don't know what you look like, so you can't describe it from that perspective.
Yeah.
On the other hand, you can get into thoughts, right? You're allowed to do that when you're doing first person and third person personal. You can have little self dialogues. Those can be fun, right? You know, or you could even insert the self dialogue metatextually, like things like okay, there's a scene where Shandar is doing something in one of the heads, right? And he spent far too much of his life in toilets, is the way I put it in the text, right? And that's because he's thinking to himself, I spend way too much of my life in toilets. There's a reason for that. I'm not going to get into it. It has nothing to do with his bowels, right? It's so, but
Yeah. I know which one you're
yeah,
talking about. I understand.
Daz isn't ready yet. Chris knows, right?
Yep.
Rowan knows, yeah, but yeah, so that's kind of a metatextual thought. By the choice of doing that, I show his thoughts without making it a dialogue. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And you can really lean into that when you're doing third person personal and make it a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for doing this with me. you have been very helpful to people, I think, and you're doing some really good stuff here. And I'm very excited to see how the progress is going. You were always good, right? There was always, you're good at telling a story, but you're getting better, and I'm really enjoying watching it. Yep, Brian made it back just in time for the raid. That's right.
Have a good night, Billy.
And good night, Billy. Yep. Billy says it's much better in the first person because it is more visceral. Loosely paraphrasing, I'm sure you've read it all, but reading back for those who may not have been, people who are watching the VOD later. Box is not arriving today, Eli says, despite what Amazon says. They haven't even shipped yet. I do have the padded mailers, though. Well, that's cool. Sorry your boxes haven't come. Yeah, Daz has a point there, too. Eldrick could turn around once he got into the hallway and kind of peer into the hall, thinking, geez, I'm an idiot. Did it make any difference? Yeah, that's true. Billy also said earlier, the talking could have dried their mouth out, but maybe just use I sipped at my wine to wet my throat. You could do that. Yeah. Daz says suddenly dry mouth.
Yeah, I went with Daz says suddenly dry mouth.
Yeah. Right. Okay, there was a conversation here. Yep. Scribe said earlier, I hear what you all are saying. Esong has given me the same advice. At the same time, I opened up The Hobbit and it's all he said, she said. That seems like a better practice than forcing synonyms like J.K. Rowling's use of ejaculated instead of said in a sentence. Yeah. BC Brown says said is less intrusive on the reader according to research is what I've found. The modern tendency is to not use or to avoid using other descriptor words for said. Some people are strict about it. I'm not, right? But I do think there's a point when it's overused. I think sometimes giggled is the right word. You know what I mean? Because that implies that someone is laughing in a high-pitched way while they are talking. People do that, and it tells you something. It tells you they're either... it tells you they're probably nervous, actually, is what it tells you. And that is useful. Right? Or if they're children, it tells you that they're just amused and being cute, which is also useful. Right? But sometimes, sometimes it is overbearing, right? Spluttered in that first use may have been a little overbearing. That's why I was focusing on it. Yeah, the right idea says, I think it's case by case and what your intent is. Yeah. Yeah, if you're trying to accentuate how someone's feeling, then I use things like spat. It depends on personal preference. Scribe agrees, case by case is important. His main thing is that it shouldn't pull someone out of a scene. Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. That's it. That's the key. That's where you know something is not right, when it takes you out of the scene. When you're worried about the word more than what's going on, go back to the basics. Yeah. BC Brown also says, sure, sometimes using something else is a great way to emphasize the tone or impact as long as it's used sparingly. Yeah, exactly. Use it when it's important, like an exclamation mark. Right? Like Scribe saying, what the fuck does contrafibularities mean? Stuff like that. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. And yes, I've got a section where the words are going to take people out, but if they actually pay attention to what is being said, they should catch the gist of it. And it's only one spot.
Yeah, well, no, that's because you're deliberately telling us something about the character.
Mm-hmm.
And that's valid. Yep. Yeah, okay, Brian, that's cool. We will talk about Sunday next. Sounds good. Daz says, I like to use descriptors instead of said because I want to show emotion in the voice. But I also use said. I think you've got a good balance going from what I've read there, Daz. I think you're doing okay. If you're not, I'll let you know. I'll let you know when I feel the word is intrusive. But said all the time is fucking boring.
Oh God, I hate that.
I found, and I don't know if it was intentional, it might have been, right? But Cormac McCarthy used said exclusively when he was writing The Road, which I didn't enjoy. I didn't like it. And famously, Cormac McCarthy also pretends that quotation marks aren't a thing, and this is supposed to be a sign of his literary genius, and I personally think it's just pretension. But I think he used said exclusively, and the whole book lacked emotional affect. But that may have been his intention. It was an overwhelming gray depression that he was trying to communicate, and he succeeded, right? So maybe that was part of why he did it. And yeah, you know, him wouldn't put it past him, right? Probably he did, because he actually is a good writer, like a really good writer. There's a reason why he's respected, right? Just because I think something is pretentious doesn't mean I think everything they do is pretentious, right? And just because I have one critique doesn't mean I hate everything. Philip K. Dick is one of the most evocative writers for visceral experience I've ever read. And I loathe him, right? I think he's horrible because he hates women, and that twists every story he's ever written, right? Hates them badly enough that it hurts the story, right? I can read Edgar Rice Burroughs. He's racist, and it can be obtrusive in places. You know, colonial racist, right? So, I should say was, because of course he's long dead, right? Which, you know, taken within the time context, you go, I guess, you know. But I can read his stuff and still enjoy it for the most part, even though some scenes I'm going, I can't do that with Philip K. Dick. Anyway, that was my pontification on it's okay to criticize and like things that a writer does at the same time. That's fine. I will shut up now. We will find someone to read. Who is on? Do we know?
Well, let's see. We have.
Oh, Kahuna's on.
Kahuna's up. Kahuna's back up.
Satoru's up, but he's playing Pokemon. The Living
Bigfoot
10
Bjornsson.
is... Oh, no, he just went off. Okay. All right. I guess we're reading Kahuna, guys. Thanks so much for joining me today. And also, Siobhan, thank you again for appearing. And thank you for, you know, working through this. And I hope it's been helpful. Okay, yeah. Eli, my brain hurts. I forgot. What are we doing next Wednesday? Was that the next... Oh, that's the next epic team-up stream, is it?
That would be the 22nd. Yes, it is. So I will not be here. We'll do it next Sunday.
Right. Okay. Not this coming Sunday. No, next coming Sunday, I've got that thing with Brian where I'm helping him go through submitting a story.
Okay, then I got 2 weeks from today.
Okay. All right. So that would be assuming I'm streaming.
That'd be the 29th. Oh, jeepers. Yeah, assuming you're streaming.
Assuming I'm streaming, which I will let you know closer to the time. I could be in the middle of packing a bunch of boxes somewhere.
Yeah.
Or throwing out half my furniture. I don't know. Well, that remains to be seen.
Yep.
Yeah, hot mic. No, I know the mic's hot. Sorry, guys. I'm actually, like, figuring it out. Okay. Yeah, I do intend you guys to still hear me while I figure it out. So I guess tomorrow I will be back for Diane Actually Writes. It will start at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. UTC, 8 p.m. in the UK. What's that? 5 o'clock in the morning, Australian Eastern Time. Friday, Aaron will be back with Ask an Old GM at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. UTC, 10 p.m. in the UK, 7 a.m. Australian Eastern Time. Aaron will not be back on Saturday for Write with Aaron. We have an appointment scheduled. Sunday, I should be back with Sable's World Forge. I'll be working on a challenge probably. Next week on Wednesday will be the next Epic Team Up stream. And next week, not this Sunday, but the following Sunday, we'll be doing our How to Submit Your Stories to Market stream. And I guess that's all the announcements that I need to have for now. Do be aware that as the end of the month approaches, the streams may become more sporadic as we're going to try to keep them up, but it will really depend on a lot of things. So I'll keep it announced in the Discord, which you will find there. And we're going to go raid Kahuna. I'm not even going to play my book ad again. You guys have seen it enough now over the past little while. A Few Good Elves is available. Sunday Good for the Game should be. Yeah, I'll let you know closer to the time if it isn't, but yeah, A Few Good Elves is available now through Kindle. It will be out through other formats really quick. That's part of what I've been working on today to get that out there. And thanks for joining me, everyone. When you get to Kahuna, don't forget to yell, "Prepare to be boarded," because we are the Sable's Privateers. I love you all. I'll see you later.